Hey, what's up, guys? This is Brandon Vessels.
And this is Brandon Prince.
And this is Brandon Squared, the podcast. Mm-hmm. What was that?
That's just how I am, man. I kind of go along with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is my first podcast. I've never done anything like this. I've always wanted to, though. I've been really interested in trying my hand at it. I was on the radio for a semester last year, we both go to the same university, and they have a student-run radio station, and I did like a 2-hour DJing show last year.
What was that like?
Boring. All I had to do was just make sure all the ads played, and then just do the weather every 30 minutes. So I didn't really put a lot of my personality in it. But
oh man,
yeah, that was pretty cool.
You didn't get to do any of your own music choices or any of your own flavor of commentary or anything like that on the music?
Well, I mean, you had the option to, but you had to go into the system and find everything, and on the off chance that they had it, you could use it. But I was just too lazy. I would rather just do what they tell me to do and just sit there. But
I gotcha.
But you've done your own podcast though, right?
Yeah, I did it with my buddy Jacob East back in our radio and TV production class in high school. I don't remember how we got the idea to do it. We just decided one day, hey, let's do a podcast. And so we started off trying to record it on a school microphone, like a basic one you just plug in a camera, and it didn't work. So we had to settle with recording it on my phone and then transferring it over to the computer, trying to edit out all the flubs, which didn't always work. We just called it Brandon and Jacob's Excellent Podcast and tossed it up on SoundCloud.
Yeah, check it out on SoundCloud if you want to hear it.
It doesn't exist anymore. I had to take it down.
Really?
Yeah, because SoundCloud only lets you put up 3 hours worth of material before you have to start paying, and I'm cheap. And so instead of paying the money, I decided to take it down and close it. It'll be on YouTube eventually.
Yeah, you played me a little bit of it. You guys were talking about the Hulk.
Yeah, we our first episode, our pilot that we did a couple months prior to the actual ones was just freeballing. We just jumped around from topic to topic. I think we talked about sleazy cinema in New York, documentaries, serial killers, and then our first actual episode was genres of film and how they're categorized. And then episode 2 was the first six issues of the Hulk. And then the last one we did was documentaries and different ones that we like.
So you have a problem with Hulk post 2008 for some reason?
Yes, I do. Do you want me to go on and on about that, or?
Yeah, I'd like to get into it because to me, I've never been into comic books at all. I've never really read them. I watched cartoons and stuff growing up based off of those comics, but I've never been a crazy comic book fan. So to me, I don't get the whole anger about post 2008. Plus, I don't know much about the Hulk really either, so.
Well, when the Hulk first started out back in the 60s, it was just... You can tell it was the series that no one at Marvel really wanted to do, because it only lasted for 6 issues, and in those 6 issues, they kept changing his abilities. When he first came in, he changed into Hulk when night fell. It wasn't with anger, it was when the sun would go down, and he was gray in his
Wait, really?
Yeah.
So it was based off the moon, not him being
It was
angry?
supposed to be like Jekyll and Hyde. And he would speak kind of like a thug, like a gangster. And as it went on, in issue 2, he's not gray anymore. It's green. He's green, and they never explain why. Later on, in I don't remember what decade, but they finally said it was because the blast hadn't fully set into his body yet. And so he was gray when he first started. By the time the issue 6 rolled around, he had to use a machine to transform into the Hulk. He can fly. They brought in the jumping, and when they draw him, it always looks like he's Supermaning through the air. And you could just tell that no one wanted to really be involved with this, and so Marvel canceled it. And they brought him back in Tales to Astonish. He was a co-star with Submariner. And he went through that until Tales to Astonish 101, and then he got his own series again. And from that point in the 60s all the way up until 2000, early 2000s, it was one long, consistent story. And it still is, even today, after they've kind of messed everything up. It's still one story. It hasn't been rebooted. And it starts off as something super goofy, but then when the 80s rolled around, it got really serious. They brought in, like, child abuse memories, just a bunch of really twisted stuff to explain Banner's psyche. And then in the 2000s, it started getting a little convoluted. And then when they decided to do Civil War, the Civil War crossover, for some reason, they didn't want to put the Hulk in it, so they launched him into space. And when he gets launched into space, he lands on the planet, and that's where Planet Hulk comes in.
See, I've heard of Planet Hulk. So the Hulk, like, they just didn't want to add him into the next series of comics? Is that what it was?
I'm sure Planet Hulk was intentional. I really don't know why they didn't put him in Civil War. Maybe they just didn't want to mess with it. But after... Because Planet Hulk is a fairly straightforward thing. There you don't have to read any spin-offs or anything. It's just Planet Hulk. This is it.
Yeah, I liked Planet Hulk. I've seen, like, the movie of it, but...
But after he leaves the planet is when he tries to wage war on Earth. World War Hulk. And World War Hulk is one of the most dense, convoluted events. It's about... like 30 plus issues to read, and you have to read like
6 or 7 issues.
Yeah, 6 or 7 different series to get the whole story. But then after World War Hulk was when... Am I allowed to curse on here?
Yeah, sure.
All right, it's when shit hits the fan, and for lack of a better phrase, and Bruce Banner is in captivity, and that's when Red Hulk comes in, and they don't reveal who Red Hulk is forever. And then at the end of this run, it's revealed, hey, it's General Ross. The big baddie who's been chasing after Hulk for years and years is finally become what he hates the most. And oh, look, he's even bigger than the Hulk, and he's stronger. Oh! And everyone loved Red Hulk, but I cannot stand him. And then the Hulk series wasn't even about Banner now. It was all Red Hulk. And then they brought in Red She-Hulk, who was Banner's dead girlfriend they brought back to life.
Oh yeah, there's just too much stuff going on.
And then they brought in Hulk's son. His friend from years ago, Rick Jones, becomes a Hulk. And then there's like 6 different Hulks going together in one comic book, and it just kept snowballing and snowballing until finally last year when they killed off Banner. So to me, Planet Hulk was the first... It was the seed that grew a terrifyingly large oak and kind of ruined Hulk.
It just got bigger and bigger. I wonder why they do stuff like that. Like, I guess maybe to, like, reinvigorate the franchise, maybe? Like, they're just trying so hard to get people back into it, or...
That's probably it, because it was...
just new, like, readers and stuff. They're trying to attract those.
That's probably it, because the series was going since 62, 63, somewhere around in there. So I guess once your series is going on for over 40 years, you got to do something to shake it up. Which they did in the past. In the early 80s, they had a miniseries called Crossroads. And Hulk got thrown into the crossroads between dimensions. And he would go to different ones. And each one was really trippy and different. And each dimension, he found out something else about his psyche. And each one would reveal why he... Like, one of them would be the abuse from his dad. One would be the fact that his dad murdered his mother. And you would find out more and more about Banner's backstory. And that's what that miniseries served to prove. You just find out more about Banner's character.
Okay.
And by the time it was done, it's just like, hey, that was a nice year-long event. And then let's get back to the actual story.
Right. So I think the thing you're getting at is that miniseries had a purpose, whereas Planet Hulk and all the others really didn't. It was just sort of off the wall, no rhyme or reason.
I mean, Planet Hulk and World War Hulk serve a purpose because Civil War, of course, was huge when it was around. And so everyone else was involved in Civil War, so it's like, let's show what Hulk does. Mm-hmm. So that was essential. And then World War Hulk, you could argue, because he's got to get revenge for them blasting him off into space. So he just comes back and does that. Everything after that, the Red Hulk, Red She-Hulk, A-Bomb... all of that other stuff did not need
cluster.
Yeah. And
oh my God.
And they followed that up with World War Hulks, plural. and it's twice as long as the actual World War Hulk.
Which was already, what, you said,
Like
like 30
30
issues?
issues.
Oh my god. So 60 issues of just craziness.
With like six or seven Hulks battling it out, and it's stupid.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. The only experience I've ever had with Hulk has been in the movies. Like, I was a big fan of... You have it over here, actually. The Hulk. Like,
Ang
the
Lee's-
original...
Ang Lee's Hulk with Eric Bana.
Yeah.
That is my favorite comic book film ever made.
It's really good. I really loved how they made it really, like, dark and trippy. And you've mentioned this before. Like, at the time, movies like this, superhero movies like this that were really dark weren't the norm. Whereas now it's totally different. But back then, we wanted bright,
Well, even then, you can still make an argument because back then, at the point when Hulk came out, the darkest superhero film that had come out before that was Batman '89, pretty much. The Michael Keaton Batman.
Great film.
Yes. And Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, came out a year before Hulk. And Spider-Man was about the right mixture between serious and goofy fun. And that's what everyone was expecting a Hulk film to be. And it just didn't work for audiences. Now, post Dark Knight, it's been reevaluated and more people are appreciating it. However, I think that's also reversing itself slowly. Because Iron Man, the first movie of the MCU, came out.
He just got a text. That's
Yeah.
Jack Black saying, damn. We should probably, yeah.
Sorry. Iron Man came out and set the tone. It didn't set the tone exactly for Marvel films, but since it was the first movie of the cinematic universe, of course they have to build on from there. So after Iron Man, you got the second Hulk film, which was also fairly serious, but had some funny moments in it.
Right. They're all trying to match the quippiness of, like,
Iron Man was the bigger
yeah.
film, and so of course they have to model everything after Iron Man. And now the Marvel movies are just bright colored, quippy nonsense that they don't take themselves seriously. But before this, around the same time, people were saying superhero films should take themselves seriously.
Right.
But then the DC universe is doing serious with Batman vs Superman and everything, and then the critics shat on it.
Right.
And then they're like, "Oh, it's too dark." It's like, well, pick what you want. Like it's either too quippy or too dark. Like,
well, in my opinion, I'd rather go to a bright superhero film because, like, you go to see, your favorite heroes save the day, and it's fun and everything's resolved at the end. I mean, I there's a place for, like, emotional, like, despair and, like, all these human problems because that allows you to, like, get closer to the characters. But to me, I don't know. Like, if I want to go see something like that, I'll go see, like...
Watchmen.
Yeah, I'll go see Watchmen. But if these characters, in the comics are different...
Well, see, that's the like, I love... I've said this before. Batman vs. Superman is my favorite movie of 2016. Especially the 3-hour cut. It's a shame that the studios decided, like... The only reason why they didn't want a 3-hour film was so they could have more show times and sell more tickets.
Right.
And so they're like, all right, let's cut a half hour of story out of this.
Well, that's the problem with all these, like, movie companies anyway, is because they're always trying to just get the money. Like, they don't care about the quality of the film as long as it grosses a large sum of money. So they'll take out, good scenes for the sake of runtime. And it's terrible because, I don't know, they're always... Since that's the motivating factor, they'll do stuff like model every single Marvel film after Iron Man after that because it's what made it successful, It kind of ruins the whole experience of seeing these different characters having their own, unique storylines and stuff because, I don't know.
Or look at studios also... They kind of piggyback on extended cuts. Look at the I like extended cuts. I don't have a problem. I like seeing stuff that they cut out of the movie. Mm-hmm. However, that can go in the opposite direction and be needless. Look at Peter Jackson's Hobbit trilogy. Like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, of course, it needs to be a trilogy. That's a big book. The Hobbit book is what?
One book.
Yeah, it's one book, and it's like less than half the size of Lord of the Rings. the way that the Hobbit movies should have been done was either 1 4-hour movie or 2 2-hour ones, which was what they were wanting to do. And then they just added stuff in from the ending of Return of the King into this prequel and added in all this other stuff until it's it's 3 movies, like a 9-hour trilogy that out of one book. And even then, in a 9-hour trilogy, I can't tell you a thing about these dwarves.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't add anything to their personality from the book or anything. They wanted to get so much stuff on the screen. Like, I don't know. I can't really coherently put my thoughts together. I'm just going to say that the fan edit that takes all that stuff out, it's a 4-hour long fan edit, and it's much better than sitting through the actual trilogy.
Well, I've never seen... So, like, a fan made their own edit of that movie?
Yes, a fan took the trilogy and edited out to the best he could everything they added in that was not in the original book. And it comes out to 4 hours, and there's an intermission in the halfway point. It's just called J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. Okay. And he's got an official website where you can like download it and get like a Blu-ray cover if you want to burn it to DVD.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a much better experience. I saw the trilogy in theaters because I was excited when they first announced it because I love the Hobbit book.
Yeah, I went to see it with a girl I was trying to date at the time, and they were terrible. I didn't like it.
Like I didn't mind them when I first saw them. Mm-hmm. It kind of dawned on me when I saw the second one where I'm just like, this is getting a little stretched. And then
I mean, because those stories are already so like dense with information.
Yeah.
That when you try to add all this extra stuff, of course it's gonna get, all the important information is gonna get lost because you're trying to add in all this useless stuff.
Right. And so like I saw all of them in theaters, and ever since I finished it up, like the more I think about it and the more I kind of go back and look at what they did, just the more pissed off I get because I'm like, this shouldn't have been something that was hard to make. 2 movies, just let it be 2 movies. It doesn't have to be a cinematic trilogy. Like, it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with 2 nice little adventures in Middle Earth.
Right, but they're just trying to, cash in on the success of the original 3.
The better trilogy.
Yeah.
And I'm still wondering if Peter Jackson is going to come back to Middle Earth and extend it even more. Because there's another book called The Silmarillion, which is pretty much the Bible of the elves.
Oh, cool.
And when Tolkien wrote it, he wrote it pretty much to where he would be the only one to read it. I own that book, and I got a paragraph in and gave up. Like, it's written so densely, and you can't pronounce any of the names. It's about the same length as The Hobbit, and I'm willing to bet Peter Jackson's going to make like a 6-part adaptation.
Oh, you'd have to. J.R.R. Tolkien is like, authors like that fascinate me because I'm like an idiot, so I can't think of anything, creative, at least like that. Like, how do you think of such a big fantasy world with all these different languages? I mean, the elves have their own language, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, I don't see how you come up with all of that.
That's kind of like Larry Niven, I think is his name. He wrote this book I read in middle school called Ringworld. It came out in the 70s, and it was pretty much Halo before Halo existed. And like, the story bears no resemblance to Halo. It just takes place on a giant ring in space. Mm-hmm. But the ring is like a million miles long and 500,000 miles wide. It's a gigantic structure.
Oh my god. And
it's just people on the ring trying to escape. And it's a really good book, and there's 4 of them. And then I found out that there's a prequel quadrilogy, and then I found out that Ringworld takes place in this universe called Known Space, which it's like 40 books in Known Space, and then Ringworld crosses over and ties in with like 30 more books, like short stories of just wars. So it's like a gigantic sprawling space universe.
How could any of that make sense?
I don't know. I've only read...
how do you come up with so much... Like, I feel like by the time you've written, like, your 60th book in this universe, you forget what you wrote in the first.
Exactly.
Like, How do you tie all that? That makes no sense to me.
And like I've only read the Ringworld quadrilogy, so like they're easy to understand on their own, but they have characters from like species that have been in wars with each other for decades, and there's books that detail these wars, and sometimes they reference a war, they name drop an event from another book. But I've never read those, but I was able to understand it just fine. I guess if you've read all of them, I can't imagine having the time to read all those, but
Oh yeah.
I don't know. The fact that Larry's able to, and he's been going since like the 60s, I think, and he's still going in this same universe.
That's insane.
I'm waiting for someone to make like an encyclopedia on it or something.
They should. So all that information. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That author's different from who's the guy that wrote Game of Thrones? George R.R. Martin. That guy. He's been, I guess, waiting like 5 or 6 more than that years to finish, I guess, out the series in the book. Maybe I don't know if he's finishing it or not. But he's been writing this book for years and he hasn't finished it yet. But he's another author that like puts all this information. Like I remember I read like the first book. And there are like 10 or 11 different characters that you're following throughout
It's
the
like
whole
an ensemble thing?
Yeah, and it's in each chapter switches from one character's perspective to the other, and you're supposed to remember all these names. It's like I like Cat in the Hat. I can't read, all these kings and deposed kingdoms and other worlds. I'll watch it. Because when I watch it, I don't have to remember any names. I'm just like, oh, that's the guy that did this thing, a few episodes ago. But in a book, it's a lot.
That's kind of like, you ever heard of the Wheel of Time series?
No, what's that?
I've been debating on if I want to read it. It's like 14 books.
See, I'm already out. 14 books?
I don't know. My favorite book series is a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah.
And that's like 15 in total. 13 main ones, and then there's a couple spin-offs. Mm-hmm. But Wheel of Time is like 14 books, 14, 15, but each one's like 1,200 pages long.
No.
And the author died before he could finish the series. And so like someone else had to finish the last 2 or 3 books. The last book was so thick they had to split it up into 2 like 1,100 page books.
Oh my god. So what's that series about?
I have no idea. It's supposed to be like high fantasy, like knights and stuff, but with time. Yeah. I don't know anything about it. I just know they're stupid thick.
Time traveling kings and queens.
And normally that would be awesome if it was like a cheap B movie you'd find in like the $5 bin in Walmart.
Right. Not in like a 15 series long book of 1,100
pages.
That's insane. Well, how far are we into it?
We are 22 minutes in.
22 minutes in? That's not bad. I don't know why I expected this to go like an hour long for this, but this is pretty good.
It's not bad for a first try.
Yeah. So this was the first pilot episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We had fun talking. Maybe go read a book or two.
Apologies for my rants. I know I can ramble on, but I like my Hulk, and I don't like it when people mess him up.
Well, yeah, they shouldn't. So, you guys have a great day or night or whenever you're listening to this. And, yeah, this is Brandon Squared. See ya.